What's going on? Welcome back to another Drivers Meet. So we're going to be talking about some topics today. We got a race coming up tomorrow. Join us live. You will see all these wonderful drivers here. I am not one of those wonderful drivers, so do not count on that. But they will be there. And today they're going to share their experience, their personal knowledge, and their expertise with you all to hopefully make you a better racer in whichever race that you are participating in. How you guys doing again?
Hello.
Good.
Good. So first thing we're going to talk about is screens. Like, does this matter? Does resolutions matter? Does, if you got a VR set, make it better? Why is the point of view in the Formula One game not give you, what you might be traditionally used to in Gran Turismo, where you could literally have like a nose view? It almost seemed like you just saw the track. You didn't see the front of the car. You didn't see any of that. So do these things matter in a race? And we will start with Brian first. Do these things matter, Brian?
Yeah, so it definitely matters. A lot of the pros, well, actually every single pro will run the T-cam view. And so they're up higher above the cockpit than most, and you're kind of looking down at the top of your tires. The reason they do this is they can see exactly where their tire is hitting on the apex of the corner. Make sure they don't, invalidate, but make sure they are using all of the track. And you just get a little bit more vision that way around you as well. If you have like a headset on and you're forced into the cockpit view, you only see the top of your tires, just the very top of those tires. You can't see exactly where you're placing them on the apex, so you just have to kind of learn by doing lots and lots of laps. It's still very possible to be fast in that position.
Okay.
But T-cam is the way to go if you want as much vision as possible and spot those apexes.
Okay. And Carlos, you were already talking about previously before we came on talking about the T-cam view, but you also use the VR headset. So I would imagine you come from regular screen to VR headset. Now you're on T-cam view. So what are some of the differences or advantages there? And what personally are you choosing? Are you kind of forcing yourself to try to get used to the VR headset and get away from the screen? Or is it something that you are personally like really attached to right now at this point in time?
Well, I've been running VR for like 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
And I'm used to it. And it's very immersive. But like Brian was saying, when you're on the T camera, I mean, I try to use that, but I can't because of the VR won't let you do it. And I have two simulators. So one is to one side. So the screen is nowhere near where the sim. So I have to use the VR. So, the advantage, I think, is when you're coming into a corner and you're breaking point and you look into where you're going to be, you shuttle in that apex. The more time that you have and the farther away you can see that, the more you can prepare. It give you less steering input, which slow you down. It make you nice and smooth. It's just like a wave back and forth. With the VR headset, like when I'm inside the car, like when you see those replays on Formula One, the real races, when you see inside the camera and that look like a chaos. So that's what I see, like the top of the tires. And I have to know the track. So I know when to turn and have reference points because I know I got to turn. And but it's just a matter of getting used to. I think the difference between T-pad cameras and VR and a high level, maybe, I don't know. But Brian maybe can tell you a little bit, maybe a half a second, maybe a second. I don't know, somewhere around there. But it's definitely an advantage without the VR headset. I'm currently working on a setup with 3 monitors, so I can do that.
Got you. So Stinky, what are you using? And if you're using that, are you comfortable with that and you're trying to go to something else?
I use an ultra wide, so it's a TV or a monitor. So
how wide is ultra wide?
It's pretty wide. It's like 2 27-inch screens next to each other. Yeah.
So we talking about like 54 inches complete from point to point.
Yeah. So I get most of the view. So I think it's a good compromise from. Okay. So you get a lot of immersion still, even though you're up on the T-cam. So you get even more space on the sides to see. So you can see the drivers even better. So I think it does help a little bit with the vision. So like that's why people will run 3 monitors.
That's what I was going to ask you. So there's a lot of information that some people are not seeing. So there's more information outside just having one screen. So speak to that, because that's kind of like news to me, like as far as like how much information are you missing by not having these wide or ultra wide screens, and how wide can you go before you run to the end of the game's data point?
I don't think there's really a limit. It'll keep going. If you could probably do a whole wraparound. It'd probably let you if you can. Right. So I think the biggest advantage of at least having a more screen is you can lock the screen. So usually the game compensates. So it will have a little bit of a sway when you start turning, the camera will move a little bit to let you see the apex. But when you have a wider screen or 3 screens, it allows you to lock that. So you just force yourself to look at the apex. So then the screen always looks the same in front of you. So you're not getting the like move, like that's the part of VR that messes you up, is you have multiple things that are moving. So your face is moving, which means moving the camera. And then you're trying to read stuff while you're judging your speed. So I think removing a lot of those moving elements where it's always fixed and you're just moving your head to see certain things, it helps a lot.
Got you. Okay. All right. So Racer X, what are you using right now? Are you using multiple screens, one screen, VR headsets? And if so, what are your future plans? What are you planning to try to do?
Right now I'm just using I think it's like a 38-inch monitor. So I mean, it's pretty good size. And going to camera views on what Brian was talking about, in the F121, I used the cockpit view for a little while and I got comfortable with it. So after I drove like the track for a good amount of laps, like I could feel where the apexes were, and like it kind of gave you a little bit more realistic feel if you want to go that way. But really to push your times and like really get up there, the television podcast view where you're right over the car, that really helps. Like when I switched from the cockpit view to that view
to T-Cam.
Yeah, T-Cam, I was just shaving time just constantly. Now I see why the pro esports racers use that camera, because you get a more wider visual and you see where your tires are.
Right. Really All right. Wildcat, what are you using? You just recently upgraded. Like this was our D-pad member, like D-pad Pro. Like if a lot of drivers in here were wondering, like commending you on what you were doing with a D-pad, but now you're over to a rig. So how has that transition been, and what screen are you using? Screen setup are you using?
Transition wise, it was interesting. Because I mean I tried and kind of hard to see it, but directly in front of me is one setup, and right off to this side of me is the 50-inch that I actually used to use when racing. Because remember, I said I was sitting on the couch, so I was sitting farther back. So doing that on a D-pad was a lot easier because I can managing such a big screen too, because I can see pretty much the entire screen sitting that far back and not have to sit here and do this. Gotcha. Now, when I had first got the rig, I tried doing it the exact same way. Granted, I was sitting a lot closer, but so now I caught myself sitting here panning left, right, trying to figure out, okay, this is that, there's this, and looking at switching settings while on the fly while driving, and it wasn't working out so well. So I went to what I use when I'm in competitive plays on first person shooters. I switched to my 32, which sits right next to it. Gotcha. And my 32 actually, it's a lot better because I can see everything on the screen and I don't have to directly look at. I'm starting to get to that point now where I can indirectly look at something, more so use peripheral vision.
Gotcha.
And be able to switch settings on the fly if I need to, and knowing and button mapping and all that stuff. But transition from D-pad to controller, it's been a little rough at times, but it's after I figured out one particular thing, especially with this particular rig, I actually opened up the pedal set and swapped 2 springs around, because the clutch pedal, now mind you, I drive a 6-speed on a daily basis. Right. So I know what a clutch pedal should feel like. We don't use a clutch when you come to Formula One. So I switched the stiff clutch spring over to the gas pedal, and the lightweight, just anybody, a piece of feather could probably land on the gas pedal and make that thing press all the way.
Right.
I put the light spring in the clutch and the heavier spring into the gas, and that's actually like this previous race here in Brazil. I didn't have traction control on full.
Right.
I turned TC down to medium, and I was actually gonna go full because of wet conditions to try and minimize some of the sliding that I knew was gonna come because I was on a dry setup. But it's more so trying to figure out the throttle, the brake and throttle. But I've also actually completely turned off all brake assist, and I'm using full manual gears. I'm not, I'm doing things a lot easier with the rig than it was with the controller, because like I said, with the D-pad, I got paddles which are right under here, but also the buttons up here. These 4 buttons I can map to underneath here on the paddles. So I was actually doing manual suggested gears with the D-pad, but I was actually having to shift from underneath because of the controllability and that muscle memory. It felt weird trying to do it off the buttons up top. So it's kind of a give and take. I gotta kind of take something.
So really, I think overall it's going to take you just getting acclimated to the new way. But I think from what I'm hearing is it's probably going to be better for you. And I think that tip on the spring situation, because I saw a lot of head nods when that came about, like from Stinky and Brian, like like that feel really does matter, So that's what you're starting to get into, and I think that's really interesting. So Paul, let me ask you a question. Paul, what screen setup are you using? Visual display are you using, and what are your future plans if you're not really satisfied with what you have now?
Well, right now I'm playing on a 65-inch TV.
Okay, big dog.
High definition, love it. That's really the only thing I know screen wise. I started with the first view, like with the wing and the front tires, like ahead of the cockpit.
Okay.
Now I cam, and I love that. That seems to be way better. You can see your marks. The only thing I really am thinking about updating yet is the cockpit itself. I think I need something a little sturdier.
Okay.
I have that play seat one with the bar between my legs, and I don't know, not really digging that too much, but I was talking to Carlos about some other ones, so got some ideas in mind.
All right, so let's get into this then. Stinky, you had already hit to it, like 50 plus 54 inches of kind of concave wrapping around, and you had mentioned and said that pretty much you could probably get a 360 view of the entire track. So Brian, is this accurate? Is the view extent if you get a full wraparound? And have you seen anybody with a full wraparound? And is that really beneficial? Does too much become just unneeded, or what is the case with that?
Yeah, I would say it's not needed. Okay. But I have seen some people use multiple projectors and project it on like a spherical screen, where they usually go for 180, because you're not going to literally be turning around and looking behind you, but you can look all the way to the side, and that's okay. So I've seen up to 180 degrees.
All right.
With multiple projectors, and it looks cool, but I don't think you're going to find any time with that. And personally, I don't like projectors. I feel like the refresh rate is slower, and the image crispness. God, I can't say it.
I got you. The crispness, the crispy,
it's not so crisp.
It's not so crisp, right?
So yeah, I use, like Stinky. I have I think it's a 49-inch Samsung Odyssey G9. Mine's a little bit more curved than his.
Okay.
But about the same size, and the refresh rate is really high. The resolution is really good. So I personally like that, and I like to get it as close to me as possible. And then I'm good to go. I used to run triple screens when I did iRacing long ago, and I did it more professionally. And I like the triple screens, but I didn't like the bars that you get.
The separation, the screens. The breakup is the continuity is not full.
Yeah. So this single ultra wide works really well for me. It doesn't have quite as much screen, but enough. Has enough.
Got you. So Carlos, I know we just heard you earlier saying that you were going to a similar, like, I guess, a triple screen type setup. So you will have those breaks in between each monitor. So hearing some of this information, does this make you kind of start wondering if you're still going to go that route, or are you thinking about maybe I should probably do more of a wraparound, a concave type screen setup?
Well, my thing is, like, for racing, like to do competition like we do, one screen is more than enough. That G9 that he's talking about, that thing is beautiful. But if you want to go inside the cockpit view with a 3 screen, it's more, it kind of have that versatility. But then now I'm losing for word versatility or whatever you want to call it.
It's all right. We all tongue-tied today. We good.
The VR so far is working fine. I mean, it's a 4K VR headset system, so not all VRs are created equal. I know I hear a lot of people talking like they have horrible experiences with VR, but the thing is the setup is very important on that, and it can be complicated. So I suggest whoever got in a VR, go on YouTube to your particular set and see what the best settings are. And the computer power, like I have to get a 3090 Ti with a 1290K 16-core processor, 64 gigabyte of DDR5. I mean, I'm talking about for you to be able to put that crank the resolution up and be like right now, like no lag, no anything. Right. And the only thing that I like about it is that I don't think you can get with the one screen, because you got the disadvantage as far as lap time goes, but you also have advantages that you don't have with the screen. For instance, when you're in the cockpit, the views are very high resolution. You can see like they were real. And I can see a car coming way back there. Way back there. Now, the only thing is that I don't have the delta for that vehicle display in front of me, because everything is a steering wheel, and you will have to, again, everything is push buttons and everything have to be displayed on the wheel. Right. But I can prepare for a vehicle that is coming way out there, as opposed to a screen that you have to keep pushing the rear view, button so you can see behind the car and in front. I'm just looking on the mirror real time while I'm, and it kind of give you a better, it can be less, chances for getting together with somebody.
Okay, so let me ask this question and then also pose it to Stinky, taking some of the components that you just threw out there and then pose it to Stinky and see what he says. So traditionally in sports, like when I've played football, all of that. So when they always tell you looking back too much can slow you down, using what Carlos just said, basically looking back with VR, because you have to use a neck movement in order to get that view. That's the whole point of VR, to give you that reality of motion with view. Based on or compared to with you or your view, you're just using the screens in front or even push button. Is there something to be lost or gained there when it comes to VR versus just the wraparound screen as far as time or efficiency?
Yeah, I think there's always going to be the upsides and downsides for both. And it'd be cool if they eventually get into where it's VR only, because it's more immersive. It forces them into a more realistic view and everything and feel. But if you get a big enough screen, you can actually do the similar thing where you're using the rear view mirrors instead of looking back with the button. But I think there's something about being able to just turn your head and look exactly where you want. That's always going to have an advantage when you're with like preciseness. But I think if you're just thinking about speed, obviously the fixed view is always going to be faster because less elements messing you up.
Got you. Okay, so let's get into this next segment, engineering. How important is it, racing? Brian, you use an engineer. Some of you all don't. Where are the benefits to that? And does it really make that much of a difference?
So it depends. I personally probably don't need an engineer as much as others because I do have a lot of the information on my steering wheel in front of me. I got a nice little screen that shows me a lot of information.
Right.
What it doesn't show me though is the lap times of all the other drivers around me.
Okay.
Maybe the gap that I can get into if I pit at the right time. I can't see all that information. And that's where having an engineer is very, very helpful. Just those things. If you know you're in a battle with someone on track, but you're separated by a pit stop currently, having that engineer tell you, oh, he's pushing faster laps than you, maybe you got to come in now. Or if you come in, one lap later, you're not going to have that same position anymore. So yeah, having that is very important. They can also see like the weather that's coming as your engineer. So that could help a lot with preparation of thinking about when you're going to stop. They can see your ERS levels. They can see your tire temperatures, your tire wear, your fuel usage, all that information they can see and relay to you without you having to go through the menus and view it. Again, if you have a wheel like mine, it's easier because the data is all there. But
all there, yeah.
But usually you have to literally click through all the menus and look at your tire temps or look at your tire degradation and all that.
Okay.
Which, once you get used to it, it's not that difficult. But if you have someone in your ear telling you, it makes it simpler. It makes it simpler. And there's other things that they can see.
They can't see. And I had told my guys, both Hillian, Carlos, and Racer X, you weren't here just then, that I was going to try and get into some of the engineering so that I could assist, because we're in the DZP Racing Championship Series. I got Carlos as a driver, Hillian as a driver, and Racer X is the reserve driver. And I'm going to try to do that just to assist and support with that. So that's going to be a learning curve for me even when I try to do it, because it won't be as often, but I think it'd be cool to try to support the guys in that. Wildcat, how much information are you looking at in regards to putting your engineering hat on when you're racing in a race, and how does that handicap you in a way? Because I mean, you're taking on more responsibility within a race wearing multiple caps. So how does that affect you, and how much information are you looking at when you're racing?
For me, it honestly, it doesn't change up too much, because I was doing it with the controller, which is why I opted to, keep my manual shifts without moving my right thumb onto the buttons, because I would operate and manipulate my MFD, which is multifunction display, basically the same thing Brian's looking at on his wheel. I have mine actually placed, which if you look at my Twitch stream from the day, it's actually hidden right behind where my face cam is. But when I'm actually, going through, I'm looking at how much fuel I have left and differentials, bias. If I pit here, I'll pop out in this position and it's pretty much on that current lap, or I'll switch and I've got it tricked to the clutch pedal as well, because it's pretty much useless the rest of the race except for the start and pitting, that I'll just hit that, and then I can go in and select if I want to know gap to the person ahead of me, gap to the person behind me, weather, tire condition, stuff like that. And it's like the in-game little race engineer voice, which I mean, it can be accurate sometimes to a point, but I also have, the lap deltas of at least about 2 cars ahead and 2 to 3 behind me. I can see those, so I know, hey, is their battle gonna, catch up to me, or hey, can I bridge this gap here, or they're ahead, X person is ahead of me, but they're on a different tire. So should I try to undercut? Should I overcut it? You start to think about a lot of different things in that situation. And so I try not put myself in a situation that have to put all that to use at one time. So I can more so focus on, all right, here we go. There's that apex. There's my breaking point here. I need to turn in here. All right, I got turn so-and-so coming up next. I need to be this gear, that, and the so-and-so for this turn, that speed, and all. So it takes on a lot more. Okay.
Racer X210, how much information are you looking at? By the way, big shout out to you taking care of responsibilities for you. Joined us in the driver's meet. I salute you on that, bro. Family first. Love that. So how much information are you utilizing when you are racing? And do you think an engineer would help you with your race pace?
I believe an engineer can be of help, but usually when I'm flying solo, the only main things I look at is my tire pressures and my fuel. That's it. Without anything else. So like if there's like the engine time and reliability issue, I'll let the engineer tell me. And if not, then I'm just going to run my race. And I'll just keep looking at my tires and seeing where I'm at, how much fuel I got left. Can I push the car faster? Can I reserve the tires a little bit more? Things of that nature. But a race engineer that can tell you that without you having to look through your MFD, that makes you more focused on the track instead of having to worry about multitasking.
Okay, got you. And I do want to send you a big shout out, because being a reserve driver, I think it has a lot of work sometimes seeming without the reward, because you still have to be prepared, right? We're going to go into these races. You're going to have to drive the track, and you don't know if you're going to drive. So it's kind of like a little extra motivation is needed there. So I really do appreciate you taking that role, because some people will be like, if I got to be a reserve driver, I'm not doing it because I got to prepare, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to use what I prepare. So big shout out to you for that, bro. Big shout out.
Hey, train with the team, and that's the best way to be prepared,
Right,
so,
right.
Someone can't make it that spot, and you're ready to go.
So
you could be the Nick DeVries of the championship series maybe one time, bro.
Hey, that'd be some
So, Paul, man, how much information are you utilizing when you're racing, and do you think a race engineer would help you with your race pace?
At my level, I don't really believe so.
Me
I
too.
look at the tires where I'm going to come out of the pits is what I'm more concerned about, what position I'm going to be in, and the tire percentage, how worn it is.
Okay.
Little bit lap times, like I'll look, my gap between the guy behind me or in front of me, and that's pretty much all I really focus on, and just drive.
Okay. Yeah, I'm firmly with that, because when I get the time penalty screens, if I'm coming into an Apex, it's over. Like if I get that time penalty or something's gonna give me a notification, like don't text and drive, I'm definitely one of the people like probably shouldn't text and drive, because as soon as I get that message, it's a wall coming and I'm hitting it. So I definitely salute you all trying to view all the information. So to me, a race engineer would be very beneficial. I'd take all that shit off the screen and just hear it in my ear. I probably would do a lot better. So I commend you all for that. So let's get into this. The next segment that we're going to talk about, we all know it, and it is troubling screens. All right, troubling sectors. We're going to get into the track. So first, we're going to start with Carlos. Carlos, what's your troubling sector of this circuit that we're going to be on tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time?
all of them.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Because the VR, everything is a very low kind of, it's a hard track. But particularly, let me see, coming in around, is, the end of the blue and the beginning of the yellow is very tricky through there. You got to be very, very precise.
Okay.
And with VR is a little challenging, but, it's okay. And that question about the engineer, I need an engineer like you have no idea, because today, for example, not to reverse, but just to finish the engineering segment,
right?
And the race today, me personally, I mean, the tire pressure and all that stuff, that's fine. You kind of have a feel when the tires are going.
Okay.
But it was a situation that I have a guy that is faster than me, but he's behind me. My tires are starting to go off, and an engineer is very useful, telling me, okay, he's catching you by a second a lap, by 2 second laps, or whatever. Because now you can manage. Because I was trying to do that just by looking through the mirror. Okay, he's catching me. His tires are probably gone. Let me push. Maybe use ERS out of the corner. And just maintain that gap, but not push too much myself, then I'm going to blow my tires either. So that information about that gap management is very important, in a race. At one point, I was catching the guys in front of me, the first 3 guys, and then at one point I have to back off and say, okay, by the time if I push this hard, by the time I catch, it's going to be 1-2 laps left. I'm not going to have no tires. And then, now you're increasing your risk of spinning out or having a situation because of that. So, how much the guys in front are pulling away from you, or how much are you catching the guys in front of you, times how many laps are left? Is it worth it? How much tire you have left? Can you accomplish that task with the tires that you have? Same thing with the guy behind you. How many tires we got left? Can I maintain a 120 for 5 laps, even though that guy is faster and he's 15, 20 seconds behind, without pushing and keep, and still finish the race, and he's still, I have to push, at least bring the laps down a little bit more. So that's what I need an engineer for. But mainly for that type of information.
All right.
But yeah, the end of the second sector and the beginning of the third is a little tricky, but it's a fun track actually. It's a very fun track, and it's very interesting.
All right. So Wildcat, what are your troubling sectors? Carlos said all. What are yours? Wildcat. Oh, his mic went out. Hold on. You got to turn it. What's up?
Helium told me that he apologized. He had some family matters that he had to attend to, and he couldn't be here. But
appreciate it. I totally understand that. Trust that. Anybody understand that? I do.
Yeah,
definitely. Wildcat, what you got?
All right. So it's not necessarily troubling sectors. It's more so turns. Like I can tell you off the bat, it's turn one is a little bit of a hang up for me, and it's mainly probably more so just me and lack of confidence in, getting in, dropping back into getting off the brakes and dropping back into the gas on that turn without losing the back end. Turn four can sometimes, it's wishy-washy, it's here and there right now. And then another big one for me is probably right around, I'm gonna say, coming out of right there, going into seven going into 8, because of that. It's like you're not even really getting on the brakes. It's like a quick tap of the brakes, downshift 1 or 2, and you're hooking the corner at speed. So and then probably, honestly, I think my worst sector probably has to be sector 3, honestly, and it's mainly it's honestly I'm gonna say right about turn 13 of sector 3 is where turn 13 to 14 is probably my worst area, because I keep missing. It's like I'll hit the apex one lap, then I'll miss the apex the next lap. And it's a lot of more so me with being on a rig versus a D-pad, because if you look at what I've done time wise in the rig, I think my fastest was a 120 a minute 20 something.
All right. But
on controller, my time on controller around Portugal, and this was months ago, was like a 118.3, I think it was. And you got I got Racer X over here trying to be sneaky over here. I think I didn't see that time step up. Okay, I see you making progress though. I like it. But so it's like I'm more so chasing what I did on the D-pad.
Got you.
And I literally have that. There's when time trial, unlike the racing line, in time trial, you actually have a set blue line that shows the racing line you took to make that fastest lap. And I'm more so trying to trace that line the whole way around the circuit. And while doing so, I'm also figuring out brake points. Okay, I need to lift off the brakes, or I need to trail brake here, and then get on the gas a little. Okay, I can smash the gas coming out of this corner, or I need to upshift early so I don't spin out, and I can still floor it coming out of here. It's kind of, it's a little weird.
Right. So so what I hear is you're trying to get back to your point, duplicate what you were doing before with the race rig, and then pick up from there, it sounds like a normal process that you probably would go through getting something new. So I'm looking forward to that. Definitely. Racer X210, you sneaky and shit out here in these streets. By the way, people mentioning lap times, Lewis Hamilton holds a lap time 1:18.75 here at this track, but you getting sneaky, man. So what is your troubling sector? Because right now, even what Wildcat's saying, not so much the sector, he named troubles in all sectors. So it's still, we have a ongoing thing right now from Carlos to Wildcat all. So what are your troubling sectors?
Well, Wildcat, thank you for saying I'm sneaky as shit. I appreciate it.
No problem.
But for a while though, when I started practicing track, I was having trouble in sector 1, especially when you come out of the little real quick corners and then you come up onto that long straight. I was having trouble keeping the car planted while going up that incline into the turn, because if you don't hit that right, it will unbalance your car. So I just started experimenting and kept going, and then I believe I found the right combination for it. And it started becoming just so fluent, like I can get on the throttle and like I won't lose it. But at the same time, sector 1, I'm still trying to shave more time off of it, because out of sector 2 and 3, and those are my so far best sectors. It's just sector 1 that's really
all right. So we got a sector 1. We got somebody said just 1. The other 2 are pretty good to me. So next, Paul, what are your troubling sectors?
Sector 2, 7 and 8.
That was bold. He came out right with that shit. There ain't no question.
They're really hard. I mean, and then all the elevation changes. I mean, it's hard to like get good traction, like good throttle on without spinning. It's a difficult track. I love the track though. It's an awesome track. Could be very fast. It's got to hit your marks.
Okay. All right. Sector 2.
Yeah, that's tough.
I was like, hey, that shit. People is like, God damn, that blue sector is, hey, might give you blue for real. Stinky, what's your troubling sector?
I'd just say the elevation mostly, but I think I had some trouble with 1 and 4 or 3 and 4 for the longest time. It's got a weird elevation change that like unstables your back end. So if you put the throttle down too early, you'll spin.
Okay.
So I think it would be there, I'd say.
Okay. So
I started to learn it pretty
one.
quickly, but so it's not like too hard since it's a shorter track. You can kind of
get back to it sooner than later.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you're in sector 1 then.
Yeah.
And you're also right there in that detection zone as well.
Yeah, you can get past really easy through
right.
there if you mess it up.
Okay. All right. Brian, what's your troubling sector, brother?
Yeah. Like all these guys mentioned, the track is just tricky because there's a lot of elevation change, and not only that, the elevation like is throughout the whole corner. Like for example, 4 is a tough one because you're going uphill as you're turning, but then it kind of levels out right when you need that grip to start accelerating.
Okay.
So if you start accelerating when you come up crest that hill, you're going to lose the back end. So 4 is tough to get right. And then 10, 11, you actually start coming downhill. And so again, you got this elevation change. When you start to go through 12, that's when it like levels out again. So that's tricky. And then 15, when you're going to come down onto the back or the front straight, once you're coming through 15, it actually like it goes up and then comes down again. Okay. So again, you can lose it there if you have a really low downforce setup, which is kind of powerful here because of how long this straight is. It can be tough to get 15 right as well if you're not careful. So I would say 4, 11, and 15 are the corners I look for, and look at that. Okay. That's one corner in every sector.
Pretty much right. In every break, it's pretty much every bridging corner and there's a to the next sector. Okay.
Yep.
So exactly. that does get you. Okay. All right. So here we go. We're on to the last segment right here. As we go into, each of the drivers are going to give you a tip, but none of the drivers can repeat a tip or even elaborate on a tip that the previous driver gave. Somebody is going to get the easiest part of this, and usually it's the first one, and I'm going to give that to Sneaky Racer X210. Give us a tip on this track that could help other drivers excel their skills here. One tip. What do you got?
For this track, I would definitely say if you can master trail braking here, you're set.
Oh shit, he took trail braking from you also. Trail braking is off of there. Although we heard pretty much that one corner, was it a 4 run? That seems like even trail braking is kind of difficult coming in and out of there. So that is good.
It's like turn 1 and 2 because you get on the brake real quick and then you have to let off to get back on the throttle.
Okay. So next driver up, Wildcat, you can't use trail braking. Give us a tip that's going to help these drivers excel their race pace.
I'm gonna say throttle control.
Okay.
It takes a lot of throttle control. Like going into 1 and 2, you have to be very precise on your throttle or you will lose the back end, even though there's no direct change. But if you hit the very inside part of turn 1, you're pretty much gonna lose the back end. It's guaranteed. Okay. Going into turn 4, like Brian said, with that elevation change, it's gonna take a lot of throttle input. You gotta feel it out when you know, or when you feel like that back end is firmly planted to actually get back on the gas.
Okay.
Coming through turn 11, and I think right after, also in sector 2, right after where Paul said he has issues, that's a major elevation change as well. It's like a roller coaster drop, honestly, for that little spot. So a lot of this track, it's going to be a lot of throttle input. If you can't control your right foot or your right finger, if you're still on a D-pad,
okay,
you're kind of going to be spinning in the walls all day long.
Okay. All right. So we got throttle control. Paul, you up next. What's the one tip? You can't use trail braking. You can't use throttle control. What do you got?
I was going to say traction, but I feel like it's kind of hitting off Wildcat. So
okay. It depends on how you would kind of elaborate on that traction. What would you say? You
with all just getting in the throttle, not too hard.
Yep, you got to find something else. You got you.
Patience then during the race.
Okay.
Patience.
Why so? So why so the patience?
So to avoid contact and spinning and somebody else's race.
Okay. All right. Taking the gentleman route. Carlos, you up next. What's the one tip? You can't use the other three that just came before you. What do you got?
Well, it don't only apply to this track, but every track. And this one more than others, some more critical than that, but is consistency. Just because you can go very fast, the fastest laps don't win a race.
All right.
Okay. Especially with tire degradation, with fuel loads, your car behavior, braking points change. And if you're going to be constantly flat out all the time and trying to maximize, it's going to buy you. I guarantee 100%, not that, I'm the best. It's going to buy, not even the EA Sports guy pushing all the way. You have to have, well, I have to say patience, like you say, but and that content, consistency. Just find what your limit is and back it off.
Okay. All right.
And, just concentrate corner by corner and just keep it safe through there. Because if you don't, you're going to crash. It's simple as that.
All right. Stinky, you up next. What do you got? Can't use the other keys before you.
All right. I'll go a different way. Find yourself an engineer.
Yeah.
Said hire somebody, boss up.
Yeah.
I like
get
it. Go ahead.
An engineer. Honestly, it'll make a huge difference, especially with tracks like this. This track's a lot smaller, right?
Right.
That means you're going to have a lot more guys fighting with each other. You'll have people going into the pits, trying to undercut you and things like that. So having somebody that able to tell you more on the guys that you're racing against, because everybody's not racing against the same people, right? You'll know where your pace is at. So you'll want to measure yourself with them, because throughout the entire race, people are going to be on different strategies here and there. So trying to get having yourself an engineer, being able to tell you, oh, this person just pit. So that they'll just keep telling you how their pace and maybe telling you when you should pit. Like, oh, they're pacing too fast. We need to pit to try to avoid, him getting a huge gap on you and stuff like that. So
nice.
It does make a difference. It is hard to get somebody to do that, but
that was good.
It'd make a huge difference here on this track.
That was good. That's a good. Hey, you hit the fiber. Indeed, and try to find yourself a race engineer. Next person up, Brian. Give us that tip.
I would say be careful with the curbs here. Okay. Run your car a little bit higher than you normally would. Take that TT setup or whatever you're using and maybe add another tick of height to your car.
Okay.
So that if you do accidentally touch a curb, it doesn't destroy you immediately. Corner 1, corner 2, even the curbs are really high, and if you get on it, it's bad news. And even the final corner, if you take too much curb there because you're battling somebody side by side, you get in trouble there too. So careful of those curbs.
All right. And before I give my tip, I'm going to allow, DZP, the fam, we're going to be participating, Carlos, Hilly, and me, Racer X210. I'm team principal in the race series. So if you could let the people know, when that's going to start, where we're going to have those, where they can come see that real quick before I give my last tip and take us out.
Yeah, sure. So Delta Zero Production is a group that me and Justin run. And we got a league that's starting basically now, where we're running 3 different divisions. So Jay, your team is in our highest division, the Champions Division, we call it. And we stream it every Saturday on Twitch. So you can look for Delta Zero Production on Twitch and you can find us there. After the streams are done, we edit it really quickly and put it up on YouTube. So it'll also be up on our YouTube. You can also search Delta Zero Production and find us there. But yeah, we'll be racing. It's 1800 GMT on Saturdays, and so what is that? That's 10 a.m. PST, 1 o'clock PST.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when we'll be racing. And yeah, if there's anyone else in your community that wants to help be engineers, plenty of drivers that would love to have an engineer, and we can teach everyone how to do that.
Right, as we heard.
Yeah, there's one right there. Wow.
There's one right.
Oh,
Carlos.
yeah. I think we got some. Yeah.
So definitely
it's
use
fun.
one for
it's
when
fun.
I'm racing on Saturdays.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So there we go. My last tip is this: restart your goddamn internet 30 minutes before. I'm just saying, just refresh that thing. Kick everybody else off. Restart your internet. Get that fresh, and don't let nobody else watch Hulu, Netflix, none of that shit. Tell them they got to go take a walk, do something outside. All
That's
right.
right.
So that's another episode of Drivers Meet. We're going to be in Portugal tomorrow, Sunday, 11 a.m. Come join us. Like I said, soon we will also be with the fam at DZP and their racing series, and that'll be Saturday. And they'll pretty much take over for that season going on, because then Wolfpack will be heavily involved in Formula One content as the season will start. I really appreciate you all for joining us. Wishing all the drivers good luck tomorrow. And delivery is the nations are flags, either or, something to represent what you want. Put it on track and let's run it. All right, that's another episode. We're out. Peace. Thanks for watching another episode of Wolfpack Performance. Don't forget to check out some of my other content on Formula One and motorsports topics. Like, share, subscribe, and we go live on the weekends. See you soon.